And now I couldn't be more prouder to introduce Chelsea, who is a phenomenal woman, as you can see, beautiful inside and out. She's a hometown girl. She went to St. Stephen's School, IMG Academy, and she is sure showing this town proud. I can't tell you how enormously wonderful it is, Chelsea, to have you represent our community in all that you're doing. She's going to be on Golf Channel's coming up session, and I'm sure you'll tell us more about that. And can't wait to hear what you have to say about the game of golf.
Thank you. Well, that's definitely going to be a very tough speech to follow. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys so much for having me here today. It truly is such an honor to be here and to be able to talk about a sport that gave me so much in my life. And it's also such an honor to be standing here at a tournament that is coming to our town and to be able to support it like this. So as Lisa said, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chelsea Pizzola. I played professional golf for about 2.5 years before segueing into the media side of things. So now I work for Fox Sports, where I co-host 2 golf shows there, where one is about showing the golf course and the 18 holes, and the other is where we actually teach golf, so we give swing tips. I've done a lot with Golf Channel. I was on the previous Shotmakers, which was their latest competition series. And then I do a number of social media hosting for organizations like the PGA Tour or charity events or celebrity pro-ams like the Tiger Woods Foundation. So I was very fortunate. I learned golf at a very young age, the age of 5. My stepdad got me started, and it was a way for us to bond. Sure enough, I fell in love with it. At the time, he moved us to Fayetteville, Arkansas, which I don't know if any of you guys have been to Fayetteville. It's a little different now, but there's not much to do. So my parents would drop me, especially in the dead heat of summer. So my parents would drop me off at the golf course early in the morning, and they wouldn't pick me up until the evening. So I would go out there, and at the time, it was when males and females played from the same tees, played the same course. So in the beginning of the summer, it was great. I'd go out, and most of the time, it was just with the boys. The girls were at the pool sunbathing, and I was like, what are you guys doing? But so we'd go out on the golf course, and things were great. Then the middle of summer came, and I started not being invited to birthday parties, or the boys started pushing me in the pool. And then it got to the point where they weren't even inviting me to play golf. So one day, my mom's Southern Belle beauty queen best friend picks me up from school, or picks me up from the country club, and I'm crying. And so, please excuse my Southern accent, but she says, "Chelsea Lynn, why are you crying?" And so I, kind of told her they were being mean to me, and she looked at me and she said, "Chelsea Lynn, didn't your mama ever tell you not to beat the boys?" And I kind of looked at her, and the tears crowded, and I said, "Miss Teresa, my mama told me to kick their ass." And, in all seriousness, we always think back to that story and we laugh. But I think, from a young age and just women in general, we perceive golf as a sport that can only be male dominant. And I think, males use it as, oh yeah, we're just going to go escape for the weekend or go have a beer on the golf course. But men use golf in a business sense in a huge way. And as women, why do we not take advantage of that? First and foremost, for the business opportunities. I had the opportunity to be on the founding board of the first ever student-run sport business conference. And I'll never forget, I was a junior in college, and I was kind of debating at the point, do I turn professional, or do I go into the business side of sports? I mean, I love it. I love sports. I love, what it can do for community. And so I was thinking, what do I do? So I had 3 minutes with John Skipper right before he was going on to give the keynote speech. And if you don't know John Skipper, he was the president of ESPN and has done incredible things for the game of sports. So I asked him, I said, "John, if you were me, what would you do? Would you turn professional, or would you go into the sport business world that, I love so much?" And he said, "Chelsea, turn professional. First and foremost, the jobs will wait. And second off, I can guarantee you that any job that you're going to take right now will not be greater than the business opportunities you're going to make on the golf course." And sure enough, he was right. The people that I've got to meet and play with just by being involved in the golf sense are incredible. And the coolest part about that is when you're out there playing with these people, I've played with CEOs of Fortune #1 companies, to Heisman Trophy winners, to MVP baseball players, And the thing is, when you're out there on the golf course, you forget their status, because you're all playing golf, and golf is hard. So it's cool to develop those business connections on the golf course because it's a level playing field. And instead of talking in a boardroom about, an idea where it's a different environment, out there there's a sense of camaraderie where you're all kind of working for each other. So that, the business opportunity is there. And then also the network. I could shoot myself in the foot here, but I would go to say that whatever industry you're in, there's somehow a tie to golf. Whether you're the sponsor of a tournament, you could be a title sponsor, you could be a host sponsor, to even just being in a community where a golf tournament is hosted, that somehow your industry is involved. I know I was talking to a local business owner here who is having a dinner for one of the players and all of his sponsors. So that's a cool way to be involved. And I think that is just so important. And then also, sorry for all you males out there, I'm talking to the women, but this could also be for your wives or for your daughters. I think that if males could put playing golf on their resume as an extra tool, they would. And as women, why don't we? And this is a really cool story that I had the opportunity to play in a celebrity pro-am in Ohio. And so we get to the first tee, and normally I don't get to ride with the groups that I'm playing in. There's always a foursome, but in this case it was just 3 players. And so I got to ride with the female in the group. And we get to the first tee, and she's almost in tears, and she's shaking, and she's so incredibly nervous. And I'm like, what's wrong? Are you excited to be here? And look how beautiful it is. And she's like, Chelsea, she's like, the 2 guys behind me are my bosses. And she was, I think, the marketing director. And she worked for a golf firm, but she had just kind of segued in, and the company was kind of an umbrella company, so there was different aspects, and one just happened to be a golf branch. So she said to me, she's like, they encouraged me to start playing golf, and this is probably only my 2nd time playing 18 holes. She goes, I'm so nervous. These are my bosses. I don't want to embarrass myself. And, so I'm giving her some words of encouragement. And before she even teed off, her bosses come up to me, and they said, we're so incredibly proud of her for being out here. We have such a respect for her for coming out here and trying. And so that extra value that she already brought to the table before she even teed off was incredible. And then to watch throughout the 18 holes as I'm giving her swing tips, she's improving, she's having fun, and they're cheering for her. And it was just this whole sense of camaraderie and the respect that they had for her going into the day, even being out there, and then the respect that they had for her improvement and her trying and her triumph was absolutely incredible. And I think that's a story that will forever stick with me when I'm encouraging women to get into the game, because I think a lot of women are so intimidated. They're like, we don't want to embarrass ourselves. We don't want to, make a fool. And, sometimes you don't have to be as good. And I think as women, with us already teeing off from a tee in front, or not having the view of being as good as the men, but at the same time, just being out there says so much to who you are and how you're trying to be. So I think, going off that, the business opportunities, the network, and also the extra value that golf can really bring to you as a person. The next kind of question I always get is, okay, so how do we get involved in golf? Whether you never touched a golf club, whether you're just starting, or whether you have a daughter or a son who wants to get involved, it's how do we start? First and foremost, and I'm not just saying this is not an ad because I was on the TV show and they're a sponsor of mine, but I am the biggest proponent of Topgolf. I think it breaks down all the barriers of golf. It allows you to go to an environment where you don't have to worry about what to bring, what to wear, or how it's going to be. You just get to go and experience golf in a really fun setting. And I think that begins breaking down those barriers. Second, kind of going off what Lisa said, she got to train with Annika, and her sister, which is incredible. Annika's the biggest role model of mine. But I think getting lessons. I think a lot of people just think, okay, I'm going to try golf, let me go out to the range. And I can guarantee you within 10 minutes, you will be so frustrated and just give it up. And I think that's what happens a lot. So I think getting lessons, getting a fundamental base. For juniors in golf, if you're looking to get your sons and daughters, there's a ton of programs out there like the First Tee, or I actually live in Scottsdale, and they have a girls golf with Phoenix. But I know there's a ton of places like that here. And I think just getting that fundamental base will help so much and keep you in the game. Because as you guys know, if you do play, the slightest chance, if your ball position is half an inch too forward, that could be the difference between you hitting the ball every time or missing every time. So I think getting those lessons and getting that fundamental base will really help stay in the game and allow you to enjoy it a little bit more. Third is being here in places like this, and you guys are all already here, so that speaks volumes, but I think immersing yourself in the golf world, whether it's coming to tournaments like this, understanding, the business side of things. To me, it's so baffling, when I go to tournaments and I look around and, you look at the stands over there and you see the signage, or you see the ways that you can be involved from a business standpoint and then also from a fan standpoint. I think, coming out here and if you're a woman, understanding, okay, who should I be watching? Who are the men going to be talking about the next day on Monday who wins? How can I engage myself in this environment to where I can learn and I can be talk about it? And then also just saying yes to the opportunities of golf. There have been so many times where I have been so nervous and, I don't know if I can do this, or, I was invited to play in the Omega Ladies Masters in Dubai, and looking at the field sheet, I'm like, these women are incredible. I don't even deserve to be here. I don't want to go play against them. And if I would have said no to that opportunity, I would have never forgave myself. And I think going and having that experience, I didn't play great. I let my nerves get the best of me, but it will forever be a moment I will cherish. And I can promise you that if you start saying yes to opportunities in the golf world, you will 100%, be thankful for it, and it will take you to places you could have never dreamed of. I'm very fortunate where this game has taken me, and I'm very open to questions or advice, whether it's for you or your sons and daughters, which I think, growing that game from the youth level is so important, and I can promise you it will open doors for them and for yourself that you could have never imagined. So thank you guys so much for having me here today. I'd love to answer any questions.
So the whole language of golf, like
Yes.
say you're beginning and people are like, what's your handicap? I have no idea, I don't have a handicap.
Right.
Those situations, how do you gracefully navigate those?
Well, I think too, you can kind of say, I don't have a handicap, what's yours? And try to learn from someone that knows more. There have been situations more from, I'll talk about when people are talking to me about PGA players. Now, I'm on the media. I'm supposed to know who everybody is. I'm supposed to know who shot what last week, who's doing what this week. And half the time, to be honest, I have absolutely no idea. So, I think learning from them and saying, my handicap, I don't have a handicap yet, but what is yours and how did you get there? Or, ask questions. I think it's constantly learning. I'm constantly learning. It's an ever-evolving game. Like, look at all the new rules. And I think, asking questions and just not being embarrassed when you don't know the answer. Because I think a lot of people are like, I don't even know what a handicap is. I'm going to shy away from it. Last week was the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and a friend of mine, she's a good college friend of mine, she's just kind of starting in golf. She knows absolutely nothing, and she's like, Chelsea, I'm really nervous to go out there with you. You're doing camera stuff. She's like, people are asking me about golf terms, and she's like, they're telling me to go walk to the tee box. She's like, I don't even know what that is. But her being out there and immersing herself and learning about it, felt so much better after a week of just being out there. And she asked a lot of questions. So I think that's a good setting, and just never being embarrassed when you don't know an answer.
What do you think about the Phoenix Open and the screaming at the golfers?
I personally love it. Like I said, one of my goals in golf is to try to, grow the game. And I think what the Phoenix Open does is it brings a fun environment to it, and it gets a youth kind of out there. So I think in one aspect of it, it is a huge party, and people are like, what is happening? But it at least brings some attention to the game of golf, and I think that's what's so important. It's funny that I think, it has one of the highest attendance, and not to mention, it's a tournament that raises the most money for charity, over $12.2 million, and there's not a single product of waste, not one. So it's a pretty incredible tournament, and, in talking to the players, I got to interview Ricky, which was, a goal for me on 16. I mean, the fans are screaming, and my dad's like, did I just see you run across 16 in heels? I'm like, yeah, that was me. But, it's so cool, and I think a lot of the players try to embrace it because it is so good for their tour, and so many sponsors want to be involved, and I think you kind of see a little bit of a transition of trying to move towards that to try to help get the youth involved in golf. So I'm a fan.
We have a young man, a front desk associate, his last name is Calloway.
Oh.
Doesn't know anything about golf. He goes, well, first you have to dress like an 80-year-old. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
So he's got that old fuddy-duddy for you, and you're
Right.
trying to dispel that.
Right. Well, I think, going to say one of the sponsors of this event and the company that I work for is Short Par 4. And they do a great job in terms of dressing, apparel, and I think that's what's the coolest part is you can get such unique, cool stuff that can almost be lifestyle brands versus, golf brands. So I think, we were just talking yesterday, some of the golf brands, I'm like, wait, that's not a lifestyle brand, it's an actual golf brand. And so I think, it's cool, and I think that perspective has to be changed of, oh, you have to dress like an 80-year-old, or for a woman, it's like, you can't dress feminine, or, it just, you have to break that barrier. And I think golf is doing such a good job, but we have to continue to, can make that movement.
So what would you suggest to bring the younger golfer out? Because golf isn't aging.
It is. It is. I think first and foremost, tournaments like the Waste Management or tournaments like this, showing the environment that it is a really fun environment and it is cool. And you see people like Ricky Fowler, who started as extreme sports. So he was, in motocross and things like that. And I think him kind of going into golf and showing that light of how awesome it is really speaks to what we should do. And I think, getting involved in, Topgolf has leagues. So I think that's a really cool way to get involved. I think, going to tournaments, like I said, Waste Management and things like that. And then also showing youth that there are other people golfing and their friends can golf. And it can be a fun, laid-back environment. And it isn't this old perception of golf. And I think, like I said, I've said this a bunch, but I do think Topgolf is so great for that. And it brings this fun environment to it that I think there was a statistic, now don't quote me on this because I'm so dyslexic, I probably read this wrong, but I think it's 67% of people go to Topgolf, have never golfed, and then it was 25% of them leave with an interest of going to a golf course, which it's a huge number. I know it might not seem like a lot, but for golf, that is an absolute huge number. So I think places like Topgolf, and then obviously like the tournaments that are really fun, the Players Tournament, which is kind of close to here, that's a very fun tournament. You see a lot of tournaments moving towards concerts and bringing in different areas that are drawing in youth to being like, oh, wait, there's a concert going on, but around a golf tournament, what's the golf all about? And I think that's what's really cool. So, and even the Masters, they're doing a lot of hospitality outside of the tournament, so you almost forget that golf is going on, but it brings up that cool factor, which I think is awesome. And one other thing that's kind of cool in the golf world is Greg Norman started this whole kind of movement called the Shark Experience. So now when you go on the golf course, which this could be a good and a bad thing, but in terms of getting youth that might not think it's cool, they actually have TVs now where you can watch whatever sports you want to watch, you can play whatever music you want to play, and can just really enjoy the day, but also an added experience. So I think it is moving towards it, but just continuing to get involved in those areas of it. Well, thank you guys so much, and it truly is such an honor. And
honestly, how awesome was that? Both Chelsea and Lisa, thank you guys so much. That was amazing. Way better than I could have imagined this event to be. Thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Justin Kristich. I'm the tournament director for the LECOM Suncoast.